2 weeks ago, behavioural analyst and investigator, and what we like to think of as a human lie detector, Sharon Box, gave us her views on how Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese were performing and whether they would be perceived as truthful and winning voters over. Well, on Saturday, Australia goes to the polls, and with the undecided vote still extremely high, Sharon joins us again to give us her view on how she thinks both of them have performed and whether she thinks that they're winning voters over. Morning, Sharon.
Morning, Michael. How are you?
Good, thanks. Now, last week you gave us some great pointers and great explanations around both, we'll call them both leaders, and their communication style. Has anything changed in the last 2 weeks?
It's been really interesting, Michael, just watching the two leaders with the various debates and interviews, the many press conferences that we see, those press meetings. It's been really fascinating just watching the two of them performing. And that's what it is. It's performing. It's political theatre. And we've seen them assassinating each other's character and just almost being quite childlike. So I guess the public don't really sort of enjoy that. I mean, it might be fun to watch on TV, but at the end of the day, they want to vote for somebody they can trust and believe. And I think all this sort of name calling and pulling each other's policies apart has been not very sort of constructive, I think. I think they should be focusing on their own policies, their own strengths, instead of attacking each other. And I guess that's part of politics, but for the voter, we don't really sort of care. We just want to sort of pick the best person for the job to represent us. So I think we've seen a lot of, I've seen a lot of changes with Anthony Albanese. He's got a lot more confidence with his gestures and the way he speaks. So he's obviously had a bit of coaching, and probably somebody's pointed out some of those things with how he's coming across. So he's coming across as more believable. He still has a few stumbles, of course, and he sort of sometimes doesn't know the answers to questions, so he wants to run away from the press. We saw that recently. But I have seen him improve in terms of how he's coming across to voters, which I think is making him more believable. And Scott Morrison is still very aggressive, and I think his leadership style is still puts a lot of people off. He seems to sometimes have trouble understanding different perspectives. It's sort of sometimes his way or no way, and I think voters get frustrated with that sort of inflexibility. So all these different character traits are playing out, I guess, and at the end of the day, I think all voters can do is really pick, what they think are the best policies that's going to align, with them and what, their beliefs are. So it's I think it's going to be interesting to see how people vote on Saturday. So I think, I guess we won't know. I think the polls are sort of have Labor in front at the moment, but as we know, anything can happen. So until the time's up and they count the votes, I guess, it's anybody's call, really, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah. Now, we saw the first debate, which was a fairly unedifying debacle, as you said, with the name calling, and basically it devolved into a 7-year-old. I was waiting to hear your faces from one of them sooner or later. And the second one, obviously there was polling goes on at least at a minimum daily, and it came across, as you said, it's not what we want from our leaders, not what we expect. Now, you mentioned that Albanese has gathered confidence and his communication style has improved. We've just recently, in today's polls, we've seen the lead that Labor was polling at narrow significantly. Do you think that this could take away that confidence and then lead him back to be more unsure in his communication style?
I don't really know, Michael. I think he's doing his best, and he's certainly had a really bumpy road with this campaign. He's had a lot of pressure, and I think that's shown with his communication at times. And I think he's really just trying to do his best. And I think he really does speak from the heart when he's communicating about the policies and the change that he wants to see. So I think he's doing his best, and I think that's all he can really do at the moment. And Scott Morrison, he's just sort of doing his thing. So, but I think, as the voters watching, will understand that it's very, there's so much at stake. So we'll just be trying to sort of sort out, do we believe what they're promising? And I think that's probably what we're really looking for. And the stumbles and the different things happening, I think a lot of people will sort of, at this point, the campaign, be overlooking that and trying to just focus on what they can promise and deliver. And there's a big team behind each of them. So I think people sometimes forget that. So I think they've got to, look at that as well.
Now, given your area of expertise, what's more likely to influence a person, polished or authentic?
Well, that's a really good question. When it comes to politics, I think it's the latter. I think we like charismatic people and powerful people, but if they can't deliver and we don't believe them, if they're not authentic, then that's a sort of a dilemma. So I think when it comes to sort of politics, we are looking for someone who's authentic and who we can believe over how they come across and how they present themselves. I mean, it's all part of the package. So in a perfect world, we'd have everything would be, amazing speakers and confident, charismatic, and everybody would like us. But I think it's very difficult to have all those things as a politician because they've got a really tough job to do. So yeah, but I do think when it comes to politics, I think people will choose the authentic nature over how polished, they come across. That's just my view.
Well, we also saw Scott Morrison basically try to distance himself from the comments and the behaviour of Scott Morrison. Now, this mea culpa, does that carry any weight with people? Will it actually change anyone's mind? Will it give license to people who were formerly supporters who were going, you know what, that sort of behaviour, that bully boy tactics, that bulldozer, as he assumes, that's not palatable to me? Or does it still come back to policies rather than the way they've gotten through?
Michael, I think that will have an impact on some people who were maybe not sure which way they were going to go. So I think he was basically admitting a weakness, a number of weaknesses with his character, and that will be, I think that will be very damaging for him. And the people that, so we're really undecided, that's just more ammunition, I guess, for them to think, well, perhaps I was right and I'll go, this way. So I think that was really, really damaging for him. And I think it was, I can understand why he was trying to sort of do that. But it's too late at this stage. It's too late to try and say you'll change the way you sort of speak to people and your core character. I mean, people can change, we can change our behavior, but what he's talking about, his sort of core behavior and the way he comes across, his personality, that will take time to change. If that's genuinely what he wanted to do, it's not going to just change overnight and suddenly become a different person with a different personality. So our personalities have developed over years and years of our lives. So there's certain things that you cannot just, flick on and off, like a switch. But I think, that would have been very damaging for him because it would have come across as showing a sign of weakness and perhaps almost a sign of defeat. So it depends how you look at it. But I think that was very damaging for him. And I think that will affect some of the way some of the voters will be voting.
Yeah, one of my favourite truisms is I'm tired of seeing organisations hiring brilliant jerks and ruining the whole team. So one great performer can ruin a whole team. Now, Albanese, again, Morrison has painted him as someone we don't know and who doesn't have policies, and we've just seen him refuse to answer questions on the costing. Does this play into Morrison's portrayal of him? Will it harm him? Because we have seen the polling shift, narrow down to where it's really is a neck and neck race. Because to me, with my untrained mind, it seems like, well, he's either not confident in what his costings will show, or he doesn't know them. I can't think of a third reason not to announce them.
So, Michael, I think not releasing those costings is also, it's damaging. and he's using the, I guess, the excuse that in past campaigns they were delivered at that late stage. So he's picking out moments in time and particular years. Can't think offhand what they were, but he's sort of quoted a few other candidates who only released their costings at that time of their campaign as a way to justify that's why he's doing it. But I think there's more to the story. I think they should surely have all their costings done ahead of time by now and not releasing them. It's just creating uncertainty. And I think voters are thinking, yeah, it's just not helping him at all. It's just, you know, the delay of releasing those costings is just not helping his case at all. And the public will be getting nervous about that. And yeah, so not helpful at all. He should have released those and to keep the journalists happy, because we want as much information as possible to make a decision. So leaving it until I think it's tomorrow he's due to release them, that's not been a good strategy.
Yeah, I'm wondering though, the one time where they were released early was in 2019 when Bill Shorten released them a week ahead of the election and lost. Whether it was just a correlation or a causative thing, I can understand why they might be a bit gun-shy, but it appears that with the advertising blackout, it would be aimed at not allowing the Morrison to be able to get together an ad to have a go at it.
That's right. And this whole advertising, it's just, I just find it bizarre, just the personal attacks, and it's just so comical. It's just, I really just have to wonder what's going through their minds when they create these ads. But and you know, they're trying to brainwash everybody, but it's not working on me. I just switch channels. But yeah, you're right though. So I think this blackout will sort of at least help. But yeah, it's a difficult one. You know, how soon do you release the figures? Because then you give the opposition a chance to then adjust theirs. So maybe there needs to be some sort of system where they both have to release them at the same time. I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is, but yeah, who sort of releases them first, I think, will be at the disadvantage. So I don't know.
Now the attacks, as you say, become quite personal. They're based on character rather than decisions. Is there a point where that can actually backfire, where people can actually start to feel a little bit of sympathy for the person whose character is being assassinated?
Absolutely. I think people, you know, we're not infallible. We've all got our weaknesses and our good and our bad sort of points. And when you're, you know, in politics, every single little flaw is magnified. So it's hard. It's really hard for them being in the public spotlight. And I think, yeah, the more they attack each other, I think it's just really going against them at the end of the day, because people, you know, we're not stupid. We can see that they're trying to sort of look for as many weaknesses as possible. But when it comes to just attacking the character and character traits and all these comical little one-liners that we hear, you know, armchair critic, you know, he's a loose unit, you know, bulldozer man. It's just, it's taking away from the real issues. And I think people are just sort of ignoring that now. But I think it's just not helping them in terms of their credibility and their character and just the type of leader that they are. And if that's how they're acting now, what are they going to be like when they're leading the country?
Yeah, at the end of the second debate, Morrison's characterisation of Albanese nearly brought a tear to my eye. I thought, finally, and then he finished the sentence with a fairly harsh whack. If he had have just stopped it rather than going, well, these are the things we agree on. Australia is great. Australia needs this. We're 100% in unison. Where we differ is on our politics. Something like that, rather than then still going back to the personal, where no one wins.
That's right. He had a chance to really finish on that. I can be a decent human being and rise above his own personal feelings, and he just couldn't help himself. So that was really damaging for him. And then, of course, we go to Anthony Albanese, who says some very nice things about Scott Morrison, particularly around mental health, which I thought was fantastic. So you can sort of see the differences in their personality and that empathy, the difference where Scott Morrison, he had that chance and he completely just, that's his leadership style and his personality. He just can't help himself, and that really, I think, damaged him. So I think the two of them behave quite amicably compared to the first debate. But yeah, there's that sort of almost bullying coming through once again, trying to belittle Anthony. And yeah, I think people will remember that, and that will be on their minds as well.
Yeah, when values are visited rather than lived, and values become transactional, I'll behave in a manner only if I'm treated in a manner. They're not values at all.
That's right. You know, the way we treat other people is really important, and I think we've seen big differences between these two men, how they treat people, and how they manage their anger and their negative emotions. We've seen contempt from both of them, but more so from Scott Morrison, because it's that, I think he just feels that sort of entitlement and that power, and he's certainly shown that in his behaviour.
Yeah, well, currently, I think we're 3 days out from the election. Both parties are sitting at around just over 30%. No Australian government has ever been formed with that low of primary vote. There's still 20-something% undecided. What advice would you give to either leader now in the last few days?
Goodness me, I don't know, Michael. I think at this stage, they just need to keep on answering questions put to them before the journalists, try and just give nice, clear answers, not shy away from things that they don't know. Just try and be as honest as they can, and just stop with the character assassinations. And yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's all a bit sort of, I think people are going to just be looking at what's happened over the past few weeks and make their minds up. I don't think much is really going to change in the next few days, but a lot of my network and people I know are still undecided, and to be honest, I was still undecided until not long ago. So it's been, is this it? And just weighing up it's like you need to have a checklist and do some pros and cons, and then try and figure out who's got the most pros.
Yeah, and as my wise old father would either say, win, lose or draw on Monday, I've still got to go to work. So don't become too invested and too despondent or celebratory, depending on how it goes. Sharon Box, TheInformer's human lie detector. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again, Michael.